Speaker of Australia, followed by the United States and Nicaragua.
Thank you, President. I speak on behalf of Australia and New Zealand. We voted in support of this annual resolution concerning the embargo against Cuba because the embargo restricts open trade and investment. This vote does not reflect an endorsement of the policies of Cuba, including widespread reports of failures to comply with international human rights standards, expropriation of property, misinformation and disinformation, and Cuban nationals fighting as part of Russia's illegal and immoral invasion of Ukraine. Australia and New Zealand remain concerned by the human rights situation in Cuba, which has continued to deteriorate following the Cuban government's heavy-handed response to peaceful protests in 2021 and ongoing restrictions on the freedom of expression and association affecting everyday Cubans. We take this opportunity to urge the Cuban government to respect the rights of all its population and call for the release of all political prisoners and those who are arbitrarily detained. Thank you, President.
I thank the Speaker of Australia. I now give the floor to the Speaker of the United States, followed by Nicaragua and Israel.
Madam President, colleagues, let me begin by offering my thoughts and prayers to the people of Jamaica, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, the Bahamas, and Cuba, who are enduring the brutal effects of Hurricane Melissa. The United States shares strong people-to-people bonds with these countries and hopes for minimal damage and loss of life. Unfortunately, the political show by the Cuban regime in New York continues unabated. Yesterday, we witnessed a shameful breach of decorum in this hall. It's obvious the truth hurts because the Cuban delegation attempted to interrupt our speech in order to prevent the truth from being heard. The misuse of a point of order was crude and disrespectful to this institution. The United States will not shrink from speaking truth about the abuses of the Cuban regime. Its failings are the cause of its economic dysfunction, and it continues to collaborate with enemies and adversaries of the United States against our interests, including actively supporting Russia's war in Ukraine. The United States government is satisfied to see so many countries send the regime a message that the international community will no longer tolerate its lies. Its continual plea for international aid, while it refuses to make any political, economic, or social reforms. Its support for rogue states and international terrorists, and most of all, its repression of the Cuban people. The regime is now at a crossroads. It can double down on the failed policies of its past, which will lead to more suffering on the island and more international isolation. Or it can finally abandon its failed, discredited Marxist-Leninist policies and restore to its people their fundamental freedoms. There are consequences for the people in rural Cuba, who are only getting 3 to 4 hours of electricity a day, while the regime continues to invest in tourist hotels and hide billions of US dollars in overseas bank accounts. It has consequences for the people of Venezuela, 8 million of whom have fled their homes due to the failed and repressive policies of Comrade Maduro, supported politically and militarily by the Cuban regime, whom itself has forced 1.8 million Cubans to leave their homes since 2021. Combined with the more than 1.5 million from the other authoritarian dictatorship in the hemisphere, Nicaragua, these draconian policies have put immense pressure on all the nations of the hemisphere. The status quo changes nothing. A vote in support of this regime gives it the excuse it seeks to wash its hands of any culpability for its financial crisis and continue to play the blame game instead of implementing meaningful reforms. The first step on Cuba's path to restore fundamental freedoms to its people, which it must take without caveats or preconditions, is to release all unjustly detained political prisoners that remain in prisons around the island. In the meantime, the United States will continue to promote accountability for the communist regime and their reprehensible behavior on and off the island. Thank you.
I thank the Speaker of the United